Well, hello and welcome back to another Torchwood Big Finish audio drama review. In today's review, I'm taking a look at the July 2025 story Child Free, as written by Holly Robinson and George Fletcher. This release does contain adult material, making it not suitable for younger listeners, and it is available to order on the Big Finish website now on both physical CD and download. Although do be warned, the physical CD is limited edition to 1,000 units, so once it is sold out, it is sold out for good. I am missing Torchwood at the minute. The monthly range has now become bi-monthly on the website. It's now just called the Torchwood range. I absolutely love this range. I really hope it continues. I always worry when we come to the end of the cover reveals because I think it is such a strong series, but it's one which takes commitment and risk from the listener. I really hope the listenership is there to continue it in the future because we get delightful self-contained stories like this. But especially in this day and age, I understand $10.99 for a CD or $8.99 is quite the commitment, but there are some wonderful stories within this range, and it's always worth the plunge, especially if you're looking for something that's just a bit different from Doctor Who. And this episode sees the return of Suzie Costello, as portrayed by India Varama, who of course has very little screen time within the TV show itself, so it's always lovely to dig into the pre-TV series era of Torchwood, but we're still in the mid-2000s. So Holly Robinson and George Fletcher have made their Big Finish debut within this story. The Torchwood main range is the perfect sandbox for self-contained storytelling. It's an ambitious, refreshing range which really packs a punch. I always say that I recommend this range not only to fans of Doctor Who, Torchwood or sci-fi, but everyone. It doesn't matter if you like science fiction, because these stories are often far more than that. They have lots of elements and components to consider with lots of exciting ideas. It's very real life, and it's something that everyone can relate to. I also don't really associate the Torchwood audio dramas with Torchwood on TV, which may seem really odd to say, but to me, Torchwood is audio, it's not TV, because I barely even watch the TV stories. Suzie Costello is an interesting character, very complex, troubled and flawed like many of the Torchwood team, and Child Free explores that in a really intimate, emotional way. It's a really strong performance from India. So Suzie is on the search for a rather generic sounding source of an alien signal, and this leads her to Cardiff, central Cardiff, on a Friday night. Naturally, it's busy, everyone is clubbing, there is alcohol and probably vomit everywhere, and during this time, she meets a rather drunk Huel. In fact, it's his stag do, but despite this, one thing leads to another, and he ends up having a one-night stand with Suzie Costello. During the night out, they stumble across a baby, as you do, abandoned. They also go to a takeaway at some point as well. They hand the baby in to police, so when they wake up the next day, why can they hear a baby crying in the other room? Child Free is two people brought together in a very unconventional way to deal with the utterly bizarre, becoming a parent and having that responsibility for a child in the space of one night. Suzie describes herself and Huel towards the end of this story as two fun screw-ups, and I think that sums up the whole journey of this story very well. These are two people that are very different, stumbling through life. I do find Suzie really intriguing, as often she always sounds like she's 1 second away from absolutely losing it. She's snappy, very urgent, always quick thinking, but perhaps not in a healthy way. And it's also as if she's always dealing with permanent, immense burnout. Meanwhile, Huel is a little bit more chill, a little bit taking things in his stride. Even this, which is a very bizarre situation where they've been burdened with a baby who they try and get rid of, and it just appears again. It's a teleporting child, because that's completely normal. So I do think that the whole narrative that this episode sets up brings out a slower side to Suzie's character, an element of calm and purpose brought about by baby Sambuca. And yes, the baby is called Sambuca. Brilliant. I'm sure I went to school with her. This episode is one of those stories which has lots of lovely small moments. When she is looking after this child, she questions the concept of being liked and wanting to be liked, and she believes that babies basically need to do very little generally to be liked. So Suzie thinks a lot about other people and their emotions, and I always get this sense of the character that she is trying to fit in. She's overthinking fitting in. She's vulnerable, and she's been given this very dangerous job at Torchwood, so every single story almost has that element of risk with her. She's very unpredictable because, again, she constantly seems on the brink. So even in this story, when she's burdened with a baby, what is she going to do in this situation? Who's she going to essentially put in danger? Who's she going to use? But at the same time, there's still that positive element within this story. It's not completely bleak, and I think the writers balance that in a really nice way. I know that Lauren Mooney script edited this one, and I feel like you can tell because I am reminded by Lauren and Stuart's work, of course, who have also done a number of Big Finish stories, and they're very, very good. So it's lovely to see the Torchwood range continuing to present these new writers within the audio form. I've mentioned it before within other reviews, but Doctor Who can be very rose-tinted, and as I've grew older, I think that's something I often find frustrating. Torchwood has absolutely none of that. It's rather bleak, and I think that's why I love this spin-off's output with Big Finish so much. There is a harsh, imperfect reality, which draws attention to those hurdles within life and problems that we face. Baby Sambuca brings Suzie and Huel together as they question who they are as people. Huel is incredibly three-dimensional. The episode basically is a two-hander. Yes, there is a few other people scattered about, but they're not really that important. But because of that, because we have so much proximity to these characters, we are aware of his present predicament, but also we effectively dig into his past, the events which have led to this moment in life, his wedding day, marrying his first love Naomi, that he met in school. As heard at the beginning of this story, he has cheated, he has also cheated in the past, but the way this is approached by the writers isn't simply black and white, cheating equals bad. It illustrates the complexities of emotion and relationship predicaments and that idea of commitment. Huel has made mistakes, but it doesn't make him a fundamentally bad person. He's just someone who has slipped up. There are still things to like about him, and the writers have explored that in a really interesting way. In fact, Child Free made me think of the comedic review quote on the back of Bob Mortimer's book, The Satsuma Complex, which reads, "I hope all the characters are doing well now the book has finished." As this story, when it does finish, it leaves moments for thought amongst the action sequences. Obviously it does have an ending, but it captures so beautifully that sense that life continues to go on. As the credits roll, Suzie is still there, leading her life. Huel is about to enter a new chapter of his life. My personal interpretation of Suzie Costello maybe blurs the ending a little bit for me. We go from the chaotic elements of a night out, it's messy, has mistakes, then going to the other extreme of being forced to be a responsible parent for a child. The fact these people don't know everything is a comforting yet truthful portrayal of human competency and how sometimes you just have to wing things in everyday situations. This story feels incredibly authentic to real life, because whilst all these bizarre alien things are going on, we are in very normal locations, driving about in a car, visiting a shop, attending a wedding. And because of that, there is a bizarre comfort to this story, but I think it's understanding the point of it. The way Suzie refers to Baby Sambuca as it from time to time at the very beginning, she's distancing herself. But the story's events influence her outlook overall. She holds the cards very close to her chest throughout, whilst getting to know Huel, which Arthur Hugh just plays so well. It is a really strong two-hander. I don't want to say too much about the ending of this story, but I see Suzie as this very lonely character who doesn't quite have a place in the world, a sense of belonging. Us listeners also have that unfortunate hindsight of knowing how Suzie Costello's story ends, which again really adds an element of sadness to this story. The fact that Torchwood simply lets her spiral and they don't really do anything about it, they do nothing to help her. The whole format of this range as well maybe exaggerates that because these are solo missions, solo stories, so Suzie always feels by herself. She never really feels a part of the team anyway. She's this lone entity, and I kind of worry for her because she is very troubled. But at the same time, this leads to some really compelling story ideas. I think if you're coming to this story from a Doctor Who angle, maybe try to suspend your usual thoughts. Torchwood at Big Finish is about people and their stories and interaction with certain problems. The aliens, the oddness which comes through the rift, and finding an explanation for those sci-fi things isn't really the point of the story. If anything, it's the least interesting bit. Meanwhile, Doctor Who is often obsessed with the monsters and the villains and the reason behind them, and often maybe that's not that exciting. And I nearly fell into that trap when listening to this episode as well. I was going to describe the alien aspects of the story as a bit generic or underdeveloped, but the story was never about that, and that is why I love coming back to this range so much. Child Free is an emotional, imperfect commentary on messy lives, finding reason and purpose where it feels like there isn't any. The story is perfectly crafted to Suzie Costello's character, and it's a treat hearing more from India as always. Welcome to Torchwood, Holly Robinson and George Fletcher. I hope we hear more from you again in the future. This range continues to leap from strength to strength as one of Big Finish's strongest outputs, and I hope that we get to see more from this line in the future. I really, really do. So thank you very much for watching this review. I really hope you have enjoyed it. Stay tuned on The Host Productions for regular reviews and reaction to the latest Big Finish audio drama releases. Have a nice day, and I shall see you all next time.